Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about Turkey's active UAV fleet, how it changed the country's military posture, and why the next decade may be harder than the first. When most people think about Turkish drones, they think about the Bayraktar TB2. That makes sense, because the TB2 became the face of Turkey's drone rise. But Turkey's real achievement is much bigger than one well-known platform. What it built is a layered unmanned force, with different aircraft designed for different roles, different payloads, and now even ship-based operations. The TB2 was the platform that made the whole story visible. It gave Turkey a drone that could stay in the air for long periods, watch the battlefield, and carry out precision strikes without putting a pilot at risk. Its biggest strength was not that it could do everything. Its biggest strength was that it was practical, available, and fielded in useful numbers. That made it more than a symbol. It made it a real military tool that changed how Turkey could monitor targets, support ground operations, and apply pressure at relatively lower cost. But the TB2 is only one layer. The Anchor family gave Turkey a more state-centered surveillance and strike platform with stronger endurance and a broader intelligence role. It helped create a deeper reconnaissance layer, one that could remain on station longer and support more complex mission planning. Then came Aksungur, which pushed the fleet further into long-endurance missions, maritime surveillance, and larger payload options. At that point, it was clear Turkey was no longer just producing tactical drones, it was building unmanned systems for much wider operational coverage. Above that sits Akinci, and this is where the fleet starts moving into a much heavier category. Akinci is not just a bigger TB2, it represents a more ambitious strike and sensor tier, with more room for advanced munitions, more powerful surveillance equipment, and a broader mission set. It shows Turkey trying to move beyond light-armed drones and into a space where unmanned aircraft can take on more serious military tasks. Then there is the TB3, which may become one of the most strategically important platforms in the whole fleet if ship-based operations continue to mature. Operating drones from TCG Anadolu gives Turkey a way to project unmanned air power at sea without copying the classic supercarrier model. This is why Turkey's UAV fleet matters so much. It gave the country persistent eyes in the sky. It reduced some of the burden on manned aviation. It created a domestic product line that could be developed, improved, and exported. And it gave Ankara something even more important than headlines. It gave strategic flexibility. Instead of depending fully on foreign systems for reconnaissance and precision strike, Turkey built an ecosystem that could support its own military needs, while also growing into a major defense export success. But success creates a new challenge. It is one thing to build drones that work. It is another thing to keep an entire fleet modern for the next 10 years. Airframes do not suddenly become useless with age, but electronics age, sensors become outdated, engines need overhaul, and data links face stronger jamming threats. This is where the next phase gets harder. The challenge is no longer proving that Turkish drones can fly, strike, and sell. The challenge is keeping them survivable and relevant against stronger air defenses, denser electronic warfare, and faster shifts in military technology. That is why military forums and defense communities matter, even when they argue. A lot of those discussions are not really about whether Turkish drones are good or bad. They are about where the pressure points are. Some focus on engines, some on sensors, some on survivability in higher threat environments, and some on whether cheaper drones should remain expendable while higher-end systems handle more dangerous missions. Those debates matter because they point to the real issue. The future is not just about having more drones in the air. It is about building a smarter and more durable, unmanned ecosystem. So the real question is not whether Turkey has already changed the drone game. In many ways, it already has. The real question is, what happens next? Can Turkey keep modernizing its UAV fleet, improve local subsystems, strengthen data links, and decide which platforms should be cheap and numerous, and which ones should be heavier and more advanced? If it can do that, Turkey's drone success will not just be remembered as a strong period. It could become a lasting military advantage. That is what will define the second phase of Turkey's drone era. The country has already shown it can design, field, and export serious systems. Now it has to prove it can sustain them, update them, and keep them effective as the threat environment gets harder. That will decide whether this fleet becomes a lasting advantage.